It's the end of the road. It doesn't matter if your toy line lasted 1 year or 10. They all have to die sometime. Alright, that's a little extreme. Toy lines end for a myriad of different reasons. Sometimes contract disputes occur or licenses expire. Other times, toy lines die on the vine for being too niche for the general market, and others last a long time but start running out of steam and start trend chasing. That was the fate that befell G.I. Joe and the Transformers. While all toy lines died, the real question is, what happens after the end? Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man. These are all toy lines that had their heyday back in the 80s and fell off, but they've all come back in one way, shape, or form, and some more successful than others, but they're pop culture standards nonetheless. But these are outliers. There are tons and tons and tons of different toy lines that have never seen a revival, or not a successful one. So the question goes even deeper. What happens after the end of a cult classic toy line? This is the 1987 Kenner M.A.S.K. Laser Command, the destined final battle between Miles Mayhem and Matt Trakker. The Laser Command is considered a grail within the M.A.S.K. community, and it is the final M.A.S.K. toy released in the United States, but it did have extended distribution in Europe. Looking at the figures, we're going old school, as both Miles and Matt are redecos of their Wave 1 1984 releases. Maybe it's a bit of a bias due to the rarity, but I think these figures look amazing. Starting with our intrepid hero, Matt Trakker. He's a redeco of the Rhino release, and he's moving away from the red and earth tones and is now bright blue with impressive orange highlights, which give him a little bit of a Tron quality. While his mask is a repaint of the Ultra Flash, it does have a new name and a new ability, the Lasertron, and it speeds up infrared beams, meaning, I don't know, your TV's response time's a little faster. In my opinion, this is the best Matt Trakker figure, and yes, that's better than Thunderhawk. I'm never going to stop ragging on that thing. These colors just bring out all the fantastic details on the original figure, and the neon quality just really makes him a showstopper. Now onto my boy Miles. He's no longer rocking the Cobra Commander blue or the Obama tan suit. Instead, a stark black jacket with red slacks, and admittedly, I'm pretty mixed on this look. On one hand, I think the red is really distracting since it breaks up the silhouette of the suit, and while it might have been a little bland, I think a full black-on-black ensemble would have been a better complement to the red mask. Now, I really like the red repaint of the Viper mask, and much like the Ultra Flash, it has a new name and new ability, the Raynet, and it catches infrared beams, and I'm not sure what good that's actually going to do in the grand scheme of things. I think too much concentrated infrared can actually heat things up, so I guess he's extra toasty in that mask. While Laser Command's Matt Trakker is my favorite version of the character, I think Laser Command Miles is probably my second favorite. The blue suit's classic already, and while the pants are color coordinated to the mask, the breakup just doesn't work. Still, it's a good looking figure all told. Now that we're coming up to the end, Miles is going solo. No more Venom to back him up. The team's broken and he's just a lone wolf on his own. No Switchblade, no Outlaw, not even Jetpack. What does he have? He has the Rat Fang, a very normal looking blue pickup truck. See, this is what happens when you fail at being a sovereign citizen. You're on the run from the IRS and you're left living in a pickup truck
down by the river!
That's why you gotta evade taxes like L. Ron Hubbard. Live on a boat. It's not the Griswold family wagon, but it's very civilian. The blue's a nice shade, and I do like those Honda Racing Stripe style stickers. It brings a little bit of vibrancy to it. Now, as is the motif of M.A.S.K, illusion is the ultimate weapon. Like the illusion Miles has any dignity left.
I sleep in a racing car, do you?
I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
Oh, yeah.
What secrets hide in the Rat Fang? Well, the running boards flip out to become cannons, and that's it. These don't look like guns or cannons of any kind. Instead, it looks like Miles is going full road rage mode and is going to take out someone's shins. Look, he might be desperate, but he's got a plan to get back on the top. He's going to publish a new tell-all book.
Buy my book! Buy my...
An autobiography. He just needs to pick up his copies from this inconspicuous shipping crate. This is the culmination of years of engineering, strategy, and espionage. The ultimate M.A.S.K disguise. A box. This box unfolds into the Hornet, a small jet glider for Matt Trakker, and it looks looks pretty video gamey in my opinion. It feels weirdly similar to the ship from Galaga or one of those cockpits for the simulator games like X-Wing or Pole Position. The Hornet doesn't have any missiles or spring-loaded features. It only has one gimmick, and it's this right here. This is an infrared beam emitter, and it is the main gimmick of Laser Command. While the Hornet shoots out infrared beams, the Rat Fang receives them. The light at the top of the truck isn't Miles Mayhem impersonating a police officer to get through traffic. It's the receiver, and when firing the beam from the Hornet, the Rat Fang explodes. Okay, it's more dynamic than what I'm showing on camera. You can see a really good view of it on the M.A.S.K Force website and the original Laser Command commercial. I don't have any batteries in this thing because I don't want all these bits to go flying. Now Miles' truck is broken down in the middle of the street, leaving him stranded without AAA, and this is the final M.A.S.K release in North America, so where did this leave the franchise? Rolling back here, when Kenner launched M.A.S.K, they also had a cartoon to help promote it, as was the style of the time. 75 episodes in total, which ran for 2 years, and it was produced by DeK, a production company that had some hits back in the day like Inspector Gadget, but quickly earned a reputation for quantity over quality. After all, they did the horrific revival of G.I. Joe after the 1987 animated movie. There's a reason why people have said DeK stands for Do It Cheap.
G.I. Joe, America's top-secret mobile strike force team. The mission, to defend freedom. The threat, Cobra, an evil organization bent on world conquest. The battle cry, Yo, Joe! Got to get tough! Yo, Joe! Got to get tough! Yo, Joe! Yo, Joe!
So, while the cartoon for M.A.S.K began in '85, it was canned in '86 and went into syndication, which isn't good for advertising a toy line that's still actively on toy store shelves. Syndication means you have to purchase a package, and with less pop culture visibility, M.A.S.K limped on in North America. It was still somewhat successful in Europe, but what little success it had wasn't enough to keep the line going. Kenner was also purchased by Tonka in '87, effectively killing any toy line on life support. Years later, Tonka and its subsidiary Kenner would be purchased by our corporate overlords, Hasbro, and they would test out the waters of brand diversification in the early 90s. The result of this would be Vortek. Vortek is basically just 90s M.A.S.K. It has the same scale, reuses the same molds, it's bright, neon, and gauche, and even had a short-lived cartoon packaged with Beast Wars and G.I. Joe Extreme. Vortek was too niche, it pretty much just died on the vine, and we really wouldn't hear from M.A.S.K until the 2000s. There was a G.I. Joe Matt Trakker figure, which is pretty neat, and then, a little later on, Hasbro got a whiff of the marketing potential in a cinematic universe, and started mashing all their toy lines and IPs together. This first attempt at brand unification was the aptly named and forgotten Unit E, a 2011 SDCC promo comic where Hasbro just put Transformers, Joes, M.A.S.K, Micronauts, Gem, all that together in a blender and totally forgot it on the kitchen counter and did nothing with it. M.A.S.K is actually name-dropped in Transformers Prime. There, it's a US military R&D division, and that continuity's equivalent of the Rhino is actually used as the basis for Beast Hunter's Optimus Prime's alternate mode. If you're a M.A.S.K fan primarily, you're probably going to be tired of me name-dropping the Transformers, but that's not gonna stop. A, Transformers is my jam, but B, Transformers was probably Hasbro's most successful in-house property in the 2010s. You gotta think about it at this point. G.I. Joe was floundering. No cartoon, a couple box office bombs, and a niche toy line. A successful one, but niche nonetheless. 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons is really just treading water. It wouldn't be until 5th edition that it became a massive juggernaut that we see now, and Magic the Gathering doesn't count in this equation. It makes buku bucks, but doesn't have a multimedia presence. If you look at Transformers around this time, not only did it have a multi-billion-dollar movie franchise behind it, it had a highly visible series of cartoons under its belt, and a successful toy run with a lot of characters becoming household names. In addition to that, you also had a very successful licensed comic from IDW, so honestly, it makes sense out of all of their in-house franchises that they would start with Transformers to be the bridge in their multi-million-dollar cinematic universe extravaganza. This really didn't work, and we'll get to that a little later. The biggest revival of the M.A.S.K franchise that we would see at this point was its introduction into the IDW Transformers comics continuity, part of the Revolution event which united M.A.S.K, Transformers, ROM, G.I. Joe, and the Micronauts. Here, M.A.S.K, called Project Spectrum, was a US specialist task force meant to combat Cybertronians. Here, the vehicles would be espionage-based but can convert into urban combat modes meant for close-quarters altercations and encounters with the Transformers. And Project Spectrum would be led by the old war dog, Miles Mayhem, a US military specialist who had the ulterior motive of using Project Spectrum as a shadow cabal to take over the United States in the event of a full war between the US and Cybertronians. It's only through the efforts of his protege Matt Trakker, as well as our other heroes like Optimus Prime and Snake Eyes, that Miles Mayhem would be defeated and cast into the shadows, where he and some of the other Spectrum writers would form Venom. I have a pretty extensive breakdown of Miles Mayhem's place in the grand story of Transformers, as well as that of M.A.S.K and Project Spectrum in my Miles Mayhem focus video, so go watch that if you want more info. Despite Hasbro's efforts to roll out a joined universe through the comics, nothing really came of it. Hasbro announced multiple movies and TV shows and did nothing. They also teased toy lines and did nothing. Really, the only bone thrown to M.A.S.K fans, as well as fans of the other toy lines here, was a SDCC gift set which featured IDW's interpretation of Matt Trakker, Rom the Space Knight, and Burt Reynolds from the Visionaries. It seems like Hasbro's forgotten all their ambitions regarding a full, combined universe of all their IPs, and that shift has even been more solidified with the change in their CEO, focusing a lot more on their big three in-house brands, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Dungeons & Dragons / Magic the Gathering, basically Wizards of the Coast. Actually, it feels like a lot of Hasbro's corporate structure is being led by Wizards of the Coast these days, thanks to how successful they are with D&D and Magic the Gathering. I mean, D&D is more successful than it ever was under TSR, and that's all thanks to Stranger Things and Baldur's Gate 3. There's new generations of 30 and 40-year-olds playing D&D for the first time. And don't even get me started on Magic the Gathering. That thing has no media presence, and I couldn't tell you a thing about it, other than it makes so much money thanks to card-addicted collectors that Hasbro's trying to make everything into Magic the Gathering these days.
You think I won't fucking do it? I'm from Waterloo, where the vampires hang out!
And then Transformers has been floundering quite a bit since the end of the Bay movies. The first three are titanically successful, and then The Last Knight and Age of Extinction are just god-awful pieces of shit. I mean, I'm not even gonna parse words there. They really tanked a lot of the brand recognizability outside of Transformers fans. Transformers 1 is definitely aimed at a younger demographic to get new fans into the series, but it flopped on release. No matter how good it is, if it flops, it flops. And the new toy line, as well as the Skybound comics, really seemed aimed at the 20 to 30 to 40-year-old demographic, much like Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering. And then, despite the speed bump called the Snake Eyes movie, G.I. Joe's over here having a full renaissance with the 6-inch Classified series. And despite being heavily influenced by 80s nostalgia, the Classified toy line is breaking out of the G.I. Joe demographic. It's becoming a very successful 6-inch toy line, probably on par with Marvel Legends. It has shockingly broad appeal. You don't even have to like the military aspect to appreciate the design. And with the focus shifting on these big three toy lines, it really seems like Hasbro's lost almost all interest in their lesser-known IPs, and they've started licensing them out. After all, Super 7's got the Micronauts license as well as G.I. Joe O-Ring style figures. They've got a lot of different toys brewing up for Hasbro right now. Then there's the Loyal Subjects, which seems to have scooped up a lot of Hasbro's cuter brands, some of their girl brands. Strawberry Shortcake, Jim and the Holograms, My Pet Monster, Popples, but also M.A.S.K. As of 2025, M.A.S.K is returning to retail, and it's not a reboot, it's not a reimagining, it is full nostalgia bait. No new design, no new aesthetic, no new characters. Just the old school designs buffed up with modern engineering and detail standards, complete with retro style boxes. And look, I'm gonna have to be completely honest here. I'm not a fan. Mostly because it's kind of boring. Look, if I want toys that look like the old school toys, I'm just gonna buy the vintage examples. Look, they might be spendy, but at a certain point, if you just want the vintage toy, just buy the vintage toy. There's no reason to go with this pseudo reissue route. I really wish either someone with an artistic vision or a new design team came in to handle M.A.S.K, because I really think it could have benefited from a full aesthetic reboot. You know, either modernize it by making it more grounded or more science fiction. Just something to give it a little more aesthetic flair. It didn't have to be fully divorced from the original Kenner mask, just something with a little bit more spice. I mean, think about the Pursuit of Cobra era of G.I. Joe, or the Universe Classics era of Transformers. These are recognizable designs, but given an artistic flourish. There are interesting ideas at play here. I'm not going to pick any of these up. They're boring. Look, honestly, for me, M.A.S.K is niche. M.A.S.K is a cult classic. It really is. It is unto itself on a little island. I do like it when it interacts with the other toy lines, like Transformers. I like the IDW Transformers continuity and M.A.S.K's placement there, but beyond that, it's just, I don't think it can succeed in a modern setting unless it had a full reboot and reimagining from the ground up. Nostalgia bait be damned. As far as I'm concerned, outside of the comic books, the M.A.S.K toy line, the M.A.S.K saga, ends here with the Laser Command, a final clash of the titans between Miles Mayhem and Matt Trakker in front of a broken down car in a parking lot. It's a little less climactic than I thought that'd be, but the point being is, while this isn't the grand finale we all would have wanted, it's still an interesting finale nonetheless, and honestly, the figures kind of make it all worth it. So that's the final M.A.S.K toy, and honestly, it'll probably be my final M.A.S.K video as well. Unless there's anything interesting that pops up in the meantime, whether that's vintage or new, this is it. I guess just a few final thoughts on M.A.S.K is Mobile Armored Strike Command does have its place in the grand spectrum of cartoon comic toy line me-doos. It's just not super high up. It's a cult classic, and really it is comfortable in that niche. It's got its charms, it's got its moments. Miles Mayhem is my favorite. I love that first figure's design. It's fantastic. Vanessa is probably the best one in general, and the Manta is probably the best M.A.S.K toy in general. And I'll leave you with this. The Manta is still better than the Thunderhawk.